Day 338 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine today. And we'll start off with those Russian military losses. And currently, Russia is sitting on 124,710 Russian military personnel losses, which represents an addition of 850 losses in the past 24 hours. Then in terms of hardware losses, so we are looking at today 7 tanks, 6 APVs and 11 artillery losses. Oh, and it's also showing yesterday's 47 cruise missiles plus 33 drones, which was a late entry due to needing additional time to fully determine all of the incidents relating to Russia's latest missile salvo from just yesterday. Oh, and a single helicopter as well, of as yet undetermined origin. Then moving across to the map, we'll start out at the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. So here it is there, where we have the remains of a downed Russian KH-555 missile from yesterday's attacks. And due to the occasional successful Russian striking of Ukraine energy grids, I just wanted to quickly show you guys an example of what your standard downtown city looks like in Ukraine right now. Now, these photos in particular are from downtown Lviv, where shops are using them so that they may continue to operate as needed. Then we'll move across on the map to the Donbass area today, where there appears to be a lot of happening in the Svatova area, so right around here. Now, although there's no confirmations of changes on the map as yet, waiting for those official updates, we do still pick up Russian telegram messages, bits and pieces here and there, where Russian soldier infantry in the region are complaining about dealing with some big issues here. Firstly, there's orders which are given by largely their absent commanders, who are in turn giving unrealistic orders to their troops. As a result, Russian infantry are performing failing forward offensives with none of the weaponry that they need, and those soldiers are calling it a criminal waste of human resources. So cannon fodder by any other name is just as unsweet. So Russian battalions stationed here are left without command and are thus disoriented. They are without strategy, without cover, without communication. So it's actually no wonder we haven't seen any real discernible push from the Russian forces in this district yet. Then a bit further down south, Ukrainian artillery hit and destroyed a Russian base in Crimea, but limited info on that one so far and no pictures to match yet either. Then we'll move down a bit further to, let's say, Bakhmut, where heavy fighting continues along the entire front line. The AFU still managed to stabilize the situation, and today the advance of the enemy forces has not been recorded in any of the areas along the front here. But just a bit south of here, Klishchivka continues to be the biggest concern for the moment, as Russian forces continue to push westerly, as they continue to utilize vast amounts of resources, really human resources, to encroach upon the AFU's high ground station just beyond. But a couple of things are happening here. So the Russian forces, as you can see, are acutely pushing out to the areas where the main arterial roads in the region exist. They love their roads, but also it's an overextending of forces too. So instead of Russia having a front line here that could be only, say, let's have a look. I'll pop that in the ruler, 3.4 kilometers, maybe about 2 miles or so. Instead, it's quite different. So this will take a moment, but I'll do it from the same spot. And you'll get a feel of what I'm looking to achieve here just from where I put it last, and that's 9 kilometers or so. So 2 miles if it was to be top to bottom, but 9 kilometers, which is therefore about 5.5 or 6 miles. So literally 2.5 to 3 times the length, thereby creating a situation in which the Russian forces are vulnerable to counterattacks from the AFU from multiple attack vectors all around here. And it's also known as a salient in military terminology. And it can be very dangerous if not properly defended or supported. So I'm talking about this peninsula-like protrusion by the Russian forces right there, as it technically makes the Russian forces put themselves in an encircled position. As a result, Russian forces now need to maintain momentum north and south of this location in order to continue to hold it effectively, which takes a lot of extra effort to do. Then we'll move down a bit further south where, let's see, so Volodar, here we go. So lots has been happening here in the past 24 hours. So the Russian forces went for an early morning push on east of the highway. So pretty much where this grey area is here, and therefore east of the town of Volodar itself. But then, as the day progressed, they lost a lot of their ground due to a counter-offensive attack from the AFU, who were using ATGM fire, so these are the anti-tank guided missiles, and took out a number of Russian armor assortments in the process, including at least 2 Russian tanks, a T-72 and a T-80, and also 1 Russian infantry fighting vehicle as well. So we found a couple of Russian tanks on the front line for a change. What do you know? Now, Russia want this position just east of Volodar's main access road so that they can then set themselves up for a future assault into Volodar itself. Not to mention, and we'll zoom out for a bit of context here, Russia does not want Ukraine to be so darn close to its southern passageway supply routes that they heavily rely on. So the Russian armed forces heavily rely on to support their very eastern offensives. So they pass all the way through there to support even Crimea at the moment, because as you might remember, the Kerch Bridge has been taken out by assumably Ukraine some months ago. So they need to supply through this route here for every area you can see beyond Volodar. In other words, just Russia's eastern offensives. Then, next door in the Zaporizhia front line, so at Orikhiv, so here we go. It was a similar situation with a similar outcome when Russian forces were repelled from any advancements right there. Then we'll move across on the map and let's see. So that's right, so in Kherson. Now we've seen some Russian communications that appear to show Russian forces stationed at Aleshki, as you can see there, as per the Oinky Pig indicator, that the Russian internet, cell, radio networks are all dysfunctional, which realistically is something of a common occurrence for frontline Russian forces throughout this entire war, and that is to go without sufficient or any communications in many instances, which can be pretty devastating for an army. For instance, as time and time again, we hear stories of Russian artillerists in the rear literally hitting Russian infantry frontliners. Friendly fire. Then we'll move across to some updates or news updates for the day. So start off with a tank update. So Poland has announced it's ready to send 60 T-72 tanks to Ukraine, of which 30 of them have been modernized. But also, Poland will be sending their first allotment of 14 Leopard tanks soon as well. Then, Canada recently announced it will send 4 Leopard tanks, Leopard 2 tanks, in the coming weeks to Ukraine also. Then we have the UK advised it will deliver its Challenger tanks to Ukraine by the end of March. 14 as well. Are you noticing a pattern form here? And Germany, 14 Leopard tanks again by the end of this quarter, so end of March as well. So it really looks like Ukraine will be able to form tank brigades, if not a tank army, in the upcoming months, it appears. Now, just for a little bit of further context there, a tank brigade is a smaller unit that is tasked with specific operations, whereas a tank army, well, it's a large military formation consisting of several tank brigades that can conduct much larger scale operations. And that's what we hope for into the long-term future there. Then in some other news, Lockheed Martin stated it's well prepared to ramp up production of its F-16 fighter jets in response to requests from allies to provide them to Ukraine. And fun fact, Ukrainian pilots in their spare time are taking English lessons in anticipation that Ukraine will later receive foreign aircraft such as the F-16 fighter. Then in another Russian military mobilization blunder, so these days, pretty much any able-bodied man in Russia is legislated against leaving the country. This even includes Kyrgyzstan workers with Russian passports that are prevented from leaving the country. So life tip here, life hack, if you're ever presented with the opportunity to obtain a Russian passport, be very, very wary of accepting that. So basically this article states that citizens of Central Asian countries who have come to Russia for work and have obtained the Russian passports cannot leave Russia and return home due to these mobilization laws. It further went on to say that Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan Russian passport holders told Radio Freedom that they had to stay in the country because they were included on mobilization lists. And this is the new Russia, really scraping at the bottom of the barrel in a desperate attempt to churn out as much manpower as it can. And you know, Russia, like many countries, has already been struggling with manpower shortages in its privatized workforce. So actions like these just exacerbate already existing issues inside the country. Then a couple of funnies to round it all off with today. So the first one, a little bit bizarre. So more late night Russian talk show panel bizarreness, where we have the editor-in-chief of Russia's state-controlled RT News, Margarita Simonian, is babbling again, saying Russia should liberate Germany and then share in the weapons with Iran and North Korea. The two biggest pariah states out there today, after Russia now, of course. So when your closest allies are countries like those, at what point do you step back and say something like, wow, maybe my political rhetoric has gone just a bit too far, and maybe we're the bad guys? And I've actually read pretty extensively over the years of these types of spiraling political mindsets. And basically what happens is their speech gets progressively crazier and crazier until everyone around them, including themselves, finally realizes that what they're saying is just pure insanity, just pure garbage. Because it hits a breaking point where even they can't deny it's absolutely bonkers whatever is coming out of their mouths. Simply put, we're going to keep hearing more and more crazy out of these guys for a little bit. Then in a bit of a final funny to round it off with, so everybody's favorite Garda gnome, Chechen leader, Kadyrov, who doesn't so much deserve the coveted title of uncle, so I think I'll call him Little Caddy. So Little Caddy has taken offense to new Russian military orders that require all military personnel to shave mustaches and beards. So Little Caddy hated the order so much, he had a bit of a tantrum, then he fired back calling the order a provocation. But of course I could see why Russia would want to enact a new order like this. Should already probably be in place, like many militaries around the world, because shaving facial hair has gone and been long grounded in military tradition and makes for a more disciplined military force and troops, infantry, because they just tend to fall in line more. They're all the same. And disciplined troops is something that Russia is in dire need of at the moment, as the Russian army doesn't want to have to deal with any more deserters, any more withdrawers or surrenders. They want to squeeze out as much discipline as they possibly can from their Moviks. Oh, and little Caddy as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment. Again, thanks for the comments, the likes, the subscribes, and all of the support. And I do hope to see all of you guys there on the next one. Cheers.